I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we are going to preview the USMNT's upcoming Nations League quarterfinal against Jamaica. The U.S. will travel to Jamaica for the first leg this Thursday, and the second leg will be the following Monday in St. Louis. To help me today, I've invited Larry Henry Jr. to join the show. Larry is the managing editor for SBI Soccer and live reporter at The Athletic. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Frank. Good to be back with you. Good to see you again, and excited for the upcoming USMNT window here as we finally have some competitive matches under Mauricio Pochettino. So excited to break it down with you, and looking forward to the first leg coming up this week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. So Pochettino, he named his 25-man roster for the matches over the weekend. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about first. And let's start with Tyler Adams, who he did not include on the roster. I think that was that was probably the biggest thing I was looking for when I saw the announcement come out was Tyler going to be on there, or was he going to be left off? Pochettino decided to leave him off. Do you think that was the right call?
I do. I think as much as we would love to have Tyler Adams there and back in the midfield, I know he's had a kind of a grueling, 12, 16 months in terms of injuries at club level at Leeds United and then at Bournemouth. I know he was able to get back after it. I believe it was in like February, March, April with Bournemouth, and then played through the Copa America. Kind of risked it a little bit because as we know, he ended up needing back surgery after that tournament, which has kind of sidelined him at Bournemouth through the opening months of the Premier League season. Has been able to come back and play some important minutes, get his fitness back. I think this past weekend played his most minutes yet, 60-plus minutes in a 3-2 loss against Brentford. So it's a step in the right direction for Tyler Adams, but unfortunately, I think it's at a moment right now where you want to keep this guy healthy long-term for 2025, 2026. And I think, we have options in midfield that can kind of cover for Tyler Adams. I mean, you don't want to risk bringing the guy in and then say something happens, he gets a setback, is out even longer. Whether if the U.S. do advance past Jamaica and get to the Final Four of the competition, which would be in the spring of 2025, you would want him there for those matches. So I think it was a good idea to leave him there as much as I would have loved to see him there. I think he's a great player for the team, a great leader. I think it's more important to keep him at Bournemouth, let him kind of keep his recovery going and kind of enjoy this international break where he's going to have over a week off to just kind of rest and recover before that grueling Premier League schedule starts up again with the festive fixtures right around the corner.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best way Tyler Adams can help the national team right now is to stay at Bournemouth, become a regular starter, going 90 minutes week in and week out. If he can do that, I mean, that's unbelievable, for this team. And so I'm glad that Pochettino had the foresight to not risk him, even though it's tempting, right? He can help the team. He's one of the leaders of the team. But now he's going to have 4 solid months to just play at Bournemouth, get back to full fitness, and get ready for the March window. And so I was pretty happy about that decision, even though, like you, I love Tyler Adams and would have loved to have seen him, but I think it was best for the team, long term. If you look at the kind of the roster big picture, it's pretty similar to the October roster. There was 5 players that were called in that were not part of that October camp. Chris Richards, Johnny Cardoso, Diego Cochin, Cade Cowell, and Tim Weah. Of those 5, which stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I think looking at it, right, we know a few of those guys were injured in October. I think Timmy Weah missed out through injury. Cade Cowell had the muscle injury with Chivas, some others as well. I think seeing Chris Richards in the camp was kind of a surprise because To me, it's kind of the same situation, a little bit like Tyler Adams, right? He was coming back, was on the bench this past weekend for Crystal Palace, didn't get to play in the loss to Fulham, but was on the bench, which was a good sign after being out. I think almost a month, maybe it was like 3 weeks with an injury. So I was kind of shocked to see him there, just because again you would want to have a Chris Richards for the 2025 schedule and potentially the Final Four of the Nations League. So I was kind of shocked to see him in there, because again, this is a guy that hasn't played a whole lot in the last couple of weeks. The last thing is you want is for something to go wrong, and hey, he has a setback. And ends up on the sideline for even longer. I think the rest of the guys, like you had said, Cal, Timmy Weah, Johnny Cardoso, I think they're all deserving of the call up. Cal's had a really good kind of end of the Liga MX season with Chivas. Timmy Weah is scoring goals at a pretty rapid rate right now for Juventus, really high on form. Johnny Cardoso is playing with Betis, and I think Diego Koken. I mean, he's just a guy that this is a goalkeeping position where it's not finalized long term yet. There's a lot of guys in the mix. I think I even read something over the weekend on Twitter about potentially should the U.S. be interested in Brad Guzan again, just because he's in good form right now with Atlanta United. So I think that number one opening is up for grabs right now. Ethan Horvath's not in the camp. He's not playing a whole lot right now for Cardiff City. Matt Turner's only made one start for Crystal Palace, which was that League Cup win over Aston Villa. So, I think that number one goalkeeping position is up for grabs, and Cochin is definitely a top prospect. I think anytime you're mentioned in the same sentence with Barcelona, it's exciting. So that's a guy I'm definitely excited to see in this camp, and hopefully maybe I don't know if he's going to get an opportunity to play, but it's another opportunity for him to kind of grow with this team under Pochettino.
Yeah, Chris Richards was the one that surprised me the most because of the injury, like you had mentioned. And I think it goes to this. Pochettino's said again and again, he wants to get to know all of these players. That's big for him. It's not just seeing them play on film. Like, he wants to shake their hand, talk to them, see what they're about, get a sense of them as a person. And he made the statement in the press conference on Sunday that with Tyler Adams, they didn't really need to, because they know so much about him already. He's this known quantity. But I guess with Chris Richards, maybe bringing him in was just so they can actually get to know him, see how he trains, see what kind of person, he is. Because, having not even played since returning from injury, I thought that was a little surprising, to bring him in versus some of the other people that they haven't. So, I agree with you on that one. What about the 5 players that were left out? Josh Sargent, Haji Wright, they were left out because of injury, of course. But the 3 guys that were in the camp in October that were left out this time, Ethan Horvath, Marlon Fossey, and Christopher Lund. Which of those 3 stood out to you the most, or surprised you the most at being left out?
I think you can make a case for all 3 that, all 3 being left out was a bit shocking, right? Especially the fact that Pochettino did bring in kind of his number one options at both left back and right back with Anthony Robinson and Joe Scally. Fossey, I think, has done a really exceptional job in Belgium again this season. Was able to get his debut in the September camp and then back with the team in the October camp. Lund has been with the team since Berhalter, since Greg Berhalter's second stint with at head coach. But I think maybe Pochettino's looking at some other options. I know Austin Trusty potentially could play as a left back at times. I know he did that with Sheffield United a little bit. Tim Ream could also do that, but I don't think either of them will move out to left back with Anthony Robinson there. And so that just opens the question, do they play like a 3 center back system, with Scally and Robinson going kind of higher upfield as wingbacks. But looking at the guys, right, Ethan Horvath was starting regularly for Cardiff City, kind of fell out of favor and has been on the bench. Marlon Fossey continuing to play regularly for Standard Liège, but unfortunately doesn't get the call up this time, which again I was a little bit shocked of. I thought he did pretty well in his time over the last two camps. And then Christopher Lund, I think, has done a solid job when he's been called up by the national team. So a little bit shocking that those three guys aren't in there. But again, I think it just opens the door for, in the back line, more defensive kind of possibilities with guys, different look at a formation. And then the goalkeeping position, like I said, I think that number one job is up for grabs right now. And Patrick Schulte's played a full season with Columbus Crew. Zach Steffen, I thought, had a good season with Colorado Rapids, is back in the picture as well. And then you have Matt Turner in there, I think, who is expected to kind of be there as he's been the number one at times for a long period of time under Greg Berhalter, and now could potentially be that under Pochettino. So a little shocking that those three aren't there, but I could definitely make a case as to why they weren't called in this window.
Yeah, Fossey's the guy I would kind of like pick out there as being most surprised. And honestly, I was a little disappointed. I really liked how he performed in September. I thought he was like a spark of energy, on the field. It's too bad he didn't get to play in the October window, due to injury. But yeah, I mean, we're short on outside backs. Like I said, he did. I don't know who knows what happened at that camp, in the October camp. Maybe there was something in training or whatnot that didn't impress him about Fossey, but it's definitely not due to injury. I mean, Fossey played the full 90 minutes over the weekend for Standard Liège, and so that one surprised me. And I think, to your point, I think just the fact that he brought in so few outside backs tells you that there's a good chance they're going to play with the back three and wing backs and just utilize some of the other people that can play the position as backups if they have to. Looking at the roster, kind of big picture now, considering all 25 of these guys on the roster, who would you say you're most excited to watch or to see in these matches? Which USMNT player are you going to have your closest eye on, or you can't wait to see what they do on the field against Jamaica?
Yeah, I think, one guy for sure that I think has had a really good start to the season overseas is Ricardo Pepi. I mean, we've seen what this guy's been able to do in past camps, right? 11 goals and 31 caps for the national team. But I think right now he's really riding a good run of form with PSV. Probably one of the better run of forms of his career in terms of, I know he had scored a lot of goals when he was on loan from Augsburg, but right now he's been scoring goals not only in the league, but in other competitions as well. So I think he could really kind of set a new career high with goals this season at PSV. And I think with Josh Sargent and both Haji Wright out of this camp, this could, and also Valerian Balogun as well, this could be a great opportunity for Pepi to kind of boost his stock a little bit in that number 9 race, right? I mean, we talked about the goalkeeping position being up for grabs. I think the number 9 position as well is up for grabs. We've seen Balogun on a good amount of occasions. We've seen Pepi a lot more. We've seen Sargent when he's healthy. Haji Wright, we really haven't seen him maybe all too much at a number 9 with the national team, but I think he's also an option too. So I think Pepi getting in there, not much competition around him for minutes this window. I think Brandon Vasquez will push him, but I don't think he's going to overtake Ricardo Pepi. I expect to see Ricardo Pepi starting at the number 9 against Jamaica in both matches, barring anything, fitness-wise or anything happens. So I'm excited to see him. And then another guy I want to shout out is Aiden Morris. I think Aiden Morris has had a really good adaptment to the EFL Championship with Middlesbrough. Michael Carrick is really high on this guy. He's jumped right into the squad over the summer, has played a lot of minutes, played in multiple competitions. Middlesbrough picked up two really impressive victories over the past week, so they're in the promotion race right now. And Aiden Morris, has been, a great bargain, I think, for Middlesbrough this season, and I think that's led to more U.S. Opportunities for him. So Ricardo Pepi at the striker position, and then Aiden Morris is a guy that I'm excited to see more of in midfield.
And you stole my pick, Larry. Stole my pick. Ricardo Pepi, he's the number one guy I'd say I'm most excited to watch this camp because this is his chance. He hasn't gotten very many starts with this U.S. men's national team in the last couple of years, but you got to figure he's going to get the start for at least the first match, and we'll see how he does. But I would love to see him get the start and score some goals. Because I do think he has a lot of momentum building. Like you said, he's coming into pretty good form with PSV. Last season, PSV didn't rotate Luke de Jong really at all. Even when they had, 2 games the same week, Luke de Jong would start both games. But you're starting to see when PSV has a Champions League matchup midweek, Champions League match midweek, then Ricardo Pepi's been getting the start, over the weekend. And he's been scoring goals every time, he's done that. A journalist, Rick Elfrink, who I've had on this show, who covers PSV, he put out an article the other day that was in Dutch, but from what I could deduce from my translation, it was something around that he thought that if Ricardo Pepi was starting for PSV week in and week out, he'd score 30 goals, this season. So I think he's gaining momentum, maybe with some folks over at PSV. I mean, he still has a huge hill to climb to overtake Luke de Jong, who's a club legend, But I think all the momentum is building for Ricardo Pepi. And I'll admit, I'm a big fan of Ricardo Pepi, so I want to see him do well. I'd love to see him come out in these 2 games and get some goals. What about Pochettino? Okay, so we're still learning about Pochettino, what his tendencies are, what he likes to do on the field, what are the players that he values. This is only the second window that we'll have seen Pochettino, in action. Finish this sentence for me. I'm most curious to see how Pochettino does X.
Adapt to two matches in a quick time frame, like 2 competitive quick matches, right? Because you have the first leg in 3 days' time, against Jamaica in Kingston. It's going to be, I think, a lively atmosphere. Jamaica's definitely going to be up for it. They've had a new head coach now with Steve McLaren, who has a wealth of experience of coaching the England national team in Germany, in England, all these places. They're unbeaten under McLaren, 2 wins, 2 draws, so confidence is high. I think it's going to be a really good test for the national team against a dynamic Jamaica team. We know what they're about. We've seen them in Nations League before, in Gold Cups and World Cup qualifying. So, and then to turn around and have to host them again 4 days after that in St. Louis is going to be tough. So I think, the first window, being able to host Panama, a good team, and then go to Mexico, and you suffer the loss to Mexico, but I don't think results were really what he was looking at. I think it was just more, the growing chemistry of this bunch, what works, what doesn't work, who his kind of leaders are in the team. So I think I'm eager to see how he kind of balances these 2 really important matches against the good Jamaica team, who probably know that they're not favored to advance out of this. So I think they're going to throw it all on the table and try to pull a shock against the U.S. So, and especially if Jamaica can win that first leg at home, it's going to put, I think, some early pressure on Pochettino and the players to get things done in that second leg at home, because we've seen it in the past with some of these home U.S. matches, right? The energy might not be there. The stadiums aren't packed. I think you're going to see a lively atmosphere in St. Louis, regardless of how the first leg shakes out. But If things don't go well and they do get bounced out, it could be some early kind of pressure on Pochettino. I'm not saying that the guy's going to get fired or anything, but it's we expect this team with the amount of talent they have to do well in this competition. They've won it multiple times, so I see no reason why they can't run the table again and win it for the fourth time in a row.
Yeah, it's gonna be curious to see how he does on the road. At Jamaica, that's gonna be fun. I mean, the team really struggled on the road against Mexico. In the last window. Now we're in a competitive game. They're going someplace they haven't played very often before. I would say probably, maybe there's probably nobody that's played more than once at Jamaica on this team. Probably last World Cup qualifying was probably the last time the U.S. played there. So there's not a whole lot of players who've played down there a lot. So that'll be interesting. For folks who don't know much about Jamaica's national team, I mean, what do you think is important that they know about them and this matchup?
I think this is one of the more talented Jamaica teams that we've seen. Probably, could be probably the most talented in terms of, where these guys play their club football, right? I mean, there's, you start off with Andre Blake. I mean, he's a Philadelphia Union legend. Has been one of the best goalkeepers in MLS. I know this season wasn't the best for him or for the Union, but, he's still kind of a force to be reckoned with in terms of trying to get past. And then looking at the roster, right? I mean, there's so many guys on this team that have Premier League experience, international experience, and experience in the championship, MLS. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's just, I think Steve McLaren has kind of an embarrassment of riches in terms of attacking players, right? Mikel Antonio and Damari Gray and Bobby Reed and Leon Bailey. And there's just so many guys in this pool of players for the next couple years for him that he can really try to get Jamaica to be a consistent threat in CONCACAF. We've seen spurts at times, right, where they've been able to pick up some big results in qualifying and in past Nations League tournaments, but I think this is it'll be a fun watch for sure. Jamaica's not going to lay down against the U.S. They're going to play dynamic football. They're gonna try to beat you out wide with the speed. They're really stubborn on the back end with the defenders, Damian Lowe and some others. Deshaun Bernard, who plays in the championship. So, it's going to be a really fun watch. I always like watching Jamaica play, whether they're playing the U.S. or whether they're playing someone else. It's always pretty cool to watch these guys play and to see all these guys that, we've been able to see in the Premier League in years past, and now they're taking their talents to Jamaica and CONCACAF. So it's pretty cool. And I think it's going to be a really good two legs for both of these teams. Really exciting.
Yeah, nobody's doubting their talent. You mentioned all the Premier League players, of course. Leon Bailey, he's been out of the Jamaican team for a lot of months. He's back in now for the first time. Aston Villa player, Mikel Antonio. He's not available for the first game due to yellow card accumulation, but of course he's somebody to watch out for on the second leg. Bobby de Cordova-Reed, I was reading that he's not going to be available due to injuries and the expected birth of a child, so we catch a break there. But yeah, this team has a lot of talent. It's always been a matter of them kind of putting it together, being organized, and getting the results that is indicative of the talent that they have. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Well, Larry, thank you so much for being back on the show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at lhenry019, and also to your work at SBI Soccer. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll do this again soon in the near future.
We definitely will. And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.